a very Southern name. It's not very Chicago of you.
It was not. No, his name was nothing like Bo. It was John is his name. So
it's just probably like when you're a kid and you're just like, "What's up, Bo?"
That's exactly what happened. So he would hate everything AI. So I just thought it was funny to put them all together. But yeah, I've been doing that, talking to lots of companies, people, individuals as well, like salespeople who.
Welcome to NC Tweener Talks, powered by NC Idea, a weekly podcast by builders for builders, where we explore the startup journey from the idea to the exit and all the lessons in between, with an exclusive focus on founders from North Carolina. Now, here's your host, serial founder and general partner of the NC Tweener Fund, Scot Wingo.
First, a huge thank you to our platinum sponsor. NC Idea Foundation fosters sustainable economic development with competitive grants and programs for entrepreneurs and funding to strengthen the North Carolina entrepreneurial ecosystem. First, a huge thank you to our gold sponsors. Today, we are featuring EisnerAmper. EisnerAmper helps tech companies from startups to public enterprises navigate growth with tailored accounting, tax, advisory, and outsourcing solutions. They have deep industry knowledge, support over 2,100 technology companies as well as investors. We'd also like to recognize our silver sponsors. Today, we are featuring Automated Consulting Group. Ready to transform your business with AI? Automated Consulting Group delivers executive workshops, fractional CAIO guidance, and custom AI solutions built for your business. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for supporting the North Carolina Tweener Talks and the entire Tweener community. It takes an ecosystem to build a thriving community, and sponsors like these are invaluable. Welcome to this episode of North Carolina Tweener Talks. We put a lot of content out here in Tweener land, and the most popular content we put out is around go-to-market or GTM. We've had folks on from Pendo talk about GTM engineering. We've had a lot of best practices, and Robbie and I have shared a lot of our thoughts on where this is going. Whenever I can get a practitioner that has been there, done that, I like to bring them in and have them chat about what they're up to. I've known Rob Walter for over 20 years. He first came to the Triangle for ChannelAdvisor, so we kind of played a role in getting him here. And he's had a variety of leadership roles across the spectrum of go-to-market. He's been a sales engineer. He's been a CRO. He's been a COO. He's done a little bit of everything. And he's been in the SaaS world for over 20 years, which gives him a lot of pattern recognition of what's going on with different SaaS companies. He's also totally AI pilled. So he is really leaning in to how you help startups from our kind of tweener level all the way up to mid and public companies engage with AI and either start AI native or AIify your sales process. He is founder and CEO of RevBo, RevBo. He'll tell us a little bit about the name. And in this interview, I wanted to get a feeling I want you to hear like, what are bigger companies doing in SaaS? So you kind of like know what to build towards. And then we go all the way back and talk about best practices for what founder-led companies kind of getting to that $1 million range are doing, and what are some best foundational practices there. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I learned a ton. I always do from talking to folks that are out there actually operating and doing things. And Rob is very much one of those guys. And so we just to give you an idea, we talk about enrichment, what's intent data, why should you care about it, what is GTM inbound, what's a good content strategy, and how you think about your ICP, how you structure your data, what is ABM. A lot of these acronyms you hear in the world of GTM itself, also an acronym. We're going to go through all that. I think every founder needs to know these terms, especially if you are doing B2B and you do have a recurring revenue element, also known as SaaS. This is the podcast for you. So enjoy my conversation with Rob Walter, founder and CEO of RevBo. Well, it's all, you can't see the back part. It's good. Yeah, I got a little male pattern baldness I'm pushing on. So I have a lot to talk about. One of our most popular topics here amongst founders in North Carolina is not only go to market. A lot of people that start companies are technical by nature, myself included, and we have a blind spot, which is go to market. So we spent a lot of time on the channel talking about that. And then, since ChatGPT launched, AI has disrupted go to market pretty dramatically. So that's, I want to get to that, but I want to kind of set the table. Let's walk through your background. Let's start back before 2005. Like, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? How did you end up at ChannelAdvisor? Let's get up to at least that point. And then I know the rest of the story, but then we'll make sure we cover some of that too.
As you can tell by some of the flags behind me, I'm a Chicago native. It's a Bears and Cubs flag. I went to school at Miami of Ohio in lovely Oxford. And I just worked for a couple different startups in the Chicago area. And honestly, we kind of moved without a job. And I don't even know if you remember this, but I came down about 4 days before we actually moved down here, and I had lunch with you and Mr. Michael Jones at the Texas Roadhouse about joining ChannelAdvisor. And
we gave you the fancy lunch. Woo!
Ooh, it was nice.
At that point in time, by our office, the only other two places you could have a sit down lunch were Waffle House and Hooters, and it was like. It was kind of slim pickings back in the day. Now there's a lot more options, but that was it.
That really was it over there. Now it's crazy to see the difference. So joined the last startup I worked at was a company called Adeptia in Chicago. Actually, they're still around. They did a bunch of data transformation stuff, and so when I came to ChannelAdvisor, I was really familiar with kind of the needs of data templates and quality as it pertained to it wasn't e-commerce at the time, but then kind of picked up very quickly when I joined ChannelAdvisor.
Yeah. And had you done go-to-market before? What was I
was sales. It was a small company. We had 5 people. So I was a sales, project management. I even wrote some Java code back in the day. So yeah, it was crazy days back then. So, but it was like sales and account management as well. I mean, listen, I'm a little bit older, so my first job was actually selling wine, E&J Gallo winery, way back straight out of college in the late 90s. So always been in the sales and account management, go to market world.
Yeah, it's always easy to sell things that are slightly addictive and delicious.
It was very easy. Yeah, so Boone's Farm, Bartles and James back in the day. All in E&J Gallo products. Is
a little wine cooler action. Whatever happened to those?
I don't know. I feel like they should be making a comeback about now.
We'll solve that on another podcast.
We will. And so I joined in 2005, and then as a kind of account manager, services person, I was back in the early days of eBay. Early days of, I don't know, maybe a few shopping channels were up at that point. No, very little. Yeah, no third-party Amazon. And then, if you remember this, I was the only sales engineer for about a year and a half. And to this day, that was still my favorite job. I mean, I just sat in a room, talked e-commerce with pretty much any retailer available at the time. And it was great. And in 2008, I became a sales leader, and I've been leading sales ever since. eBay, Salesforce. I've been a CRO for 8 years at a company called Ampliance, which is a headless CMS, and then Oro Commerce, and then most recently at BigCommerce, now known as Commerce. So
one of the worst rebrands, second only to Rhythm, in our industry. Yeah, I can't take credit for either of them, but I don't know which one. Which one do you think's worse? The commerce thing's just confusing. It's like calling something potato or something. It's like it's such a common word. It's like,
it's interesting. When I was there, I didn't find it as difficult as since I've left, where it's now everyone I say I was at Commerce, and they kind of give you a little, formerly BigCommerce, right?
Yeah.
But
if you have to always include the formerly, then there's no need to do the name change.
My vote would be Rhythm, because you had kind of two good names there between Commerce Hub and ChannelAdvisor. Like they were good and established. So, but
I'm not going to argue with you on that one. That one bothers me the most. It's more fun to make fun of the commerce one, but the other one hurts. It hurts bad. Yeah. I was always impressed that you were the only person that you were kind of like the Salesforce. And when I'm saying Salesforce, there's the people side, but we're talking about the CRM system. You were good at both, but you were always the Salesforce whisperer. So you were the only one that could get that darn thing to have a report that worked and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so
it was pretty cool. I've always had that as part of the kind of my mantra as a CRO, especially just being operationally sound, because in my experience, even at some large companies, you spend so much time talking about whose data is right, and you don't actually make progress and do things quickly. And so, it's been I like it. I mean, I enjoy that part of the role as well. So it's been an interesting couple years since the kind of injection of AI into that world, because it's almost like, it's like put it in hyperdrive, where people didn't care about things before. They were happy to have marketing come in and sales come in and somebody else come in and present their totally non synchronized data. AI kind of comes through that crap pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been interesting because we've been at this a while. It's been interesting to watch the sales org change over time, right? Like when we started, we were one of the first SaaS companies out there. Salesforce was at the Mac Daddy and way ahead. And then we had Omniture, us, Shopify was behind us at that moment in time. And we were all just trying to figure it out. So we had inside sales, which we would call BDR, SDR. And those are all used very differently, I found. Like you go to Pendo and, they have different. BDR is like for a PLG product and SDR is for an enterprise, but that's just their flavor of it, right? Everyone uses those terms differently, which is kind of confusing. But it's like the lead gen kind of qualification layer. And then we for a long time, we only had sales engineers, then and we had account execs, but then we called account execs sales execs, which is commonly abbreviated SE, which is confusing because now we already had that occupied by sales engineers. So that's confusing. And then RevOps was kind of born, right? Which was this kind of take what the role you used to do and give it a brand. And now there's a whole career path there, which is really, none of that existed. And it's kind of been interesting over the last 20 years to watch all that form. And then it kind of ran smack into AI and it's getting devolved and deconstructed. Let's go up to AI. Did I miss any of the big changes that you like, let's say you go into a big, $100 million SaaS business today, plus what else is in there pre-AI that then we can talk about what's changing?
Pre-AI, meaning kind of roles that were there? Yeah, I think there's additional, another ADR, which is like ADR if you've got an ABM focused account development rep, kind of your really account focused area. I think what's interesting,
ABM is account based, basically. So you have carpet bombing, which is screen, kind of hitting everything in your out there, and then lasering, which is ABM, which is all right, I'm going to have these 10 accounts. I got to get HP in, and I'm going to do everything I can to get in front of, that one account and get it in the door. And here's my targets inside of HP. So I'm going to throw everything I can at getting someone at HP to engage with me. Is the opposite side of that strategy.
That's definitely one that's there. I would say 100 million, you get to the point of that RevOps group can get pretty bloated.
Yeah. And at some point, they're all working around Salesforce. They're all you have all these people that are, Salesforce is actually the impediment, but you're so in the weeds of it. This is what drove me as a technology person at ChannelAdvisor, I was like, Salesforce is not helping us. We're hiring 6 people to fix all the junk that Salesforce is messing us up on. And it got to be this, I'll never use it again because it got so bad that it was just this is the opposite, and their price would go up. So it'd be not only is it not doing what we want to do, but now the price just, it'd be here's your new invoice. It's 30% more, but they'd always sell you to solve the problem you're having, you just need to pay us 30%. And it was always devious as $10 a seat a month or something. But then out of that would squirt $600,000. And you're wait.
We can relive it. I was there for a couple of years, and so you could tell it is. But there's always a shell game because at those size companies, no matter what, your ARR can't go down. So figure out a way to sell them more stuff. And it, unfortunately, the real solution to some of that is to buy some more stuff, which, is for those larger companies, their checks get so big. And even for the smaller companies, it's like, for what for? Like, why do I have to pay more for this? And so it's a battle. I mean, at Commerce, formerly BigCommerce, the RevOps group was pretty big. I mean, 30 people, and that's a lot, and that's why I think that's one of the bigger areas of disruption. I think that'll have the AI will have in the upcoming years for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so you go to, in my head, this kind of starts, I'm sure it was a little bit earlier, but you go to Commerce, formerly known as BigCommerce, and you're put in the leadership role of a big team, and Commerce is what, a 400, like what's their revenue?
350 million.
350. Yeah, 350 ARR business, public company, always fun. And you're put in, your CRO. What did the org look like? And then how did you work to modernize that? I think there's some startup lessons in here to kind of like look at the change management you had to go through and
I have definitely took whatever color the AI pill is, I've taken it for sure. So they were in the middle of a transformation between Feedonomics was a business they acquired. They were on HubSpot. BigCommerce was on Salesforce, super old implementation, tied into billing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they were in the middle of a transformation. So anywhere that I go, it's always been kind of got a playbook of how, the stack should work. And just reality was you weren't making any changes because every change you made was scope creep. So to the transformation that had been going on for, far too long. So we had to look to AI to help us. Like, it was just the only option. So I took very quickly I found a sales manager on the team that was really passionate about this. His name is Matt Dornfeld. He lives out in Austin, Texas. And I kind of made him my basically AI chief of staff, for lack of a better description. And his priority was to find ways to modernize the stack without having to replace anything. So everything is additive. He researched, I don't even know how many different technologies. But he was all over it. We would meet, almost daily to talk about the things that we could implement to make it more effective. We had a team of, I think, 52 SDRs.
Wow.
And
organized by geo, vertical.
Yeah, there was some geo, not vertical, more customer segment.
East to west.
East west, but also just kind of revenue band. You had a complexity that went there.
Wow.
BigCommerce did also
SMB,
have
mid-tier enterprise.
Yeah, there's a lot of small businesses that use BigCommerce as well. So you had inbound motion that was trial motion as well. And so we immediately kind of dove in and tried to figure out how do we upsell? How do we take an inbound lead and make it flow through the system better? I remember having a conversation with our SDR leader, I guess midsummer, and it was how do you think your roles, how do you think this role is changing? We were automating a bunch of the emails, but we were automating it and not creating a good enough human in the loop step.
Yeah.
So we were.
You went too far with the automate. Yeah. Everyone kind of goes a little far and they have to cut back a little bit. Yeah.
And also we weren't using intent information when we were, we were just using it to do what we were doing before, which was, as you so affectionately put it, carpet bombing. Anyone who was, could possibly run an e-commerce business. And I think as you said, one of the things that have changed is that, right? The amount of bombs someone gets in a given day now with the use of AI is just crazy. The spam is just insane. Phone numbers, call, if you give your phone number anywhere on the internet, you're getting a gazillion calls a day. So we were not being relevant as much as we should have been in that. And so we saw a really high activity rate, but the conversion rate went down over time. So we actually found a tool called Actively.ai. They just raised their Series B. And they were basically would take all that activity, a bunch of intent data, anything you're tracking in your systems, and basically let you be really, really prescriptive in what your outreach is going to be. So, based upon these 10 factors, they've kind of built their own brain. And as an SDR or as a sales rep, I'm going to get a Slack message every morning that says, hey, go do these 4 things, right? And totally, we didn't, that was just taking, I think the proof of concept maybe took us 2 months to stand up, which given the length of the transformation project, we were able to do things pretty quickly.
Yeah. So let's, again, a lot of first-time founders, and we may have lost them on here. Let me kind of give another version of this just so it lands. So what you need is, in today's world, your target customer, we call that an ICP now. They're just they don't pay attention because, and I get probably 100 of these a day, probably 200 across my different personas. And, it's just the funniest one was over at Refi Buy. I got one that said, "Are you interested in agentic commerce?" And it was like, yeah, I kind of am, right? But it was a competitor, and they had not, they're just carpet bombing, and they hit me, and it's hilarious. It's you guys are obviously, and it ruins your authenticity. It ruins your authenticity as a brand. It erodes your brand. So it has a lot of downstream effects I don't think a lot of people think about. It's so easy to press the button and send a million messages that you don't think about, oh, I've actually ruined the inbox. I will never not me, but one of our actual ICPs is never going to really engage with that brand because in his head it's now AI slop brand kind of thing. So you have to be really careful in this new world with AI. First of all, you can't burn the boats and bridges, and then so to solve that, what you want to do is deliver a very part of my rule is a human always writes the message. So I have, because you can just totally detect AI generated stuff. It's so easy. So that's number one. But you can templatize it and things like that. But, so what you need is a platform like this. And there's a lot of these. We use some on our websites. There's, I always call it RTD2, but it's RB2B. And then there's another one we use called Factors. So they're these website intent platforms. So if someone comes to your website, today, modern people don't fill out forms nearly as much as they used to back in the day. So a form fill is a really good intent signal. It's I want this white paper because I'm interested in this topic. Oh, that's pretty solid intent. We have to go upstream to find the intent now because consumers now know if I give you a little bit of intent signal, you're going to hammer me. So they've gotten very shy. So then we've had to get clever, and there's technology solutions for that. But imagine a spider, and it's sitting there, and it's got its little tentacles, its legs on the web, and you're just looking for any kind of one of your target customers to come in and show a little bit of intent. And then now you can time an outreach in just the right time. Hopefully they're reading some content on your site or something. They attended a webinar. There's a variety they came by a trade show booth. There's a lot of you can probably rattle off
just keyword searches that are there.
Keyword searches, that came in through Google, and they were looking for something kind of feedonomics or something in your world. And then the system takes all that in, and then it knows best practices, and it also knows the mapping of account to rep. So it will say, all right, Sally, you're the rep, you're the SDR person assigned to this thing at this, it is now your moment to reach out in this particular way. Here's some recommended content you should send as a follow-up kind of thing. So it kind of ties all that together in a nice bundle and comes up with the next thing. And it's smart. So it also loops, right? So then it sees what everyone's doing. And then it's well, that was working 6 months ago. And now it's not working. Now I'm going to try, this other thing, another best practice that I see actually did work over here type of a thing. So they're using AI in the core. There's a brain in there that's figuring out what is the optimal thing to do. Yeah. What are some other intent signals that you are in the modern era that maybe we didn't have 10 years ago?
Hiring, job changes, That's another big one. If you've got, you've kind of developed your ICP, the roles that they would hire for.
Yes, you're actually watching Indeed or something, or like LinkedIn signals for hiring.
And you can do that.
Job changes.
You can, I've personally done that with Claude, but you can also utilize things like Apollo and things like that to also look at those job changes. Other funding announcements, press releases, things that, again, they were out there before, but now they're just at your fingertips whenever you need it. So those are all good. I think, you said it well. It's just that, reaching out at the right time. And I think the key is to provide value without that obligation of, hey, do you want to meet? Providing content that has value, relevancy, is authentic without going to a form fill. There are, one would argue, people argue like you shouldn't put a gate in front of anything nowadays. There's probably some things you might still want to do that, but providing value without that obligation is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So part of go-to-market that was always nice to have, but not required, was inbound, where you would put some content out there and it would bring some traffic back. For us at RefiBuy, that's like 80% of what's working. So we're gonna just pound the more button on that and put as much content out there as we can, because that gives us this really strong intent signal back, and it builds it has the also this was somewhat true in the pre-AI era, but it's like amplified 100x, and it's the opposite of the carpet bombing. It's kind of like, if you're putting really good content out in the world and it's authentic and human made, it really resonates with people because it's increasingly rare as a percentage of what they're receiving. So it's a very interesting world that's changed in just like 5 years very rapidly from that. But it's also very hard for a big public company to do that, because this was the frustrating for me as a content creator at ChannelAdvisor in my own company, CEO. I couldn't get content out fast because, the lawyers would say, well, you can't release a blog post during the trading day. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. They're like, well, there's risk there. And, lawyers are like, they see risk and they run away, even though I'm not even talking about anything relevant. I'm talking about some eBay thing going on over here that's not relevant to our stock at all. The lawyers are like, absolutely not. This will violate all the SEC policies. But then at the same time, you've got Elon like just doing whatever the hell he wants. So there you go. I just didn't have the chutzpah to do what he did, and as a first time public company CEO. So that was probably on me. But it's like super frustrating because that's working, but it's very hard to get out. So you kind of have to. I imagine being a public company in today's world, it's like essentially it's very, very hard to get that out there.
Yeah, it is, and I think you've always been. I remember early days before we were publicly traded, right? You're doing it now, where you personally just create noise in the channel that people follow. And I think even if your audience is only 50 companies, your target market, you can still do things like that. I'm actually having a call with a client of mine in a couple of hours where I'm going to suggest exactly that thing, right? You've got a unique thing to talk about. You have a defined audience. It's authentic. It comes from you. It comes from your experience. Talk about it. And this is a company that basically gets no inbound whatsoever, none. And this is where you got to flip the script a bit. So,
yeah. So in the modern era, so we're kind of like looking at the building blocks of go-to-market in the AI era, and we've talked about intent data and the importance of that. The other one is, this inbound strategy or a content strategy, and most tech founders hate this when I tell them they should do it. And you may have this come up in your call. There's a lot of friction getting them to do it because it just seems like it's not fun. If you're a nerd, you don't really think about writing stuff and putting it out there. There's a million reasons not to do it, but it's like the one thing that's working the best, so you kind of have to. And then the other one, another topic that comes up a lot is this whole idea of enrichment and automated workflows. Help us. How do you think about that? So there's there's kind of two platforms that always come up. So there's Clay and Apollo. You've already mentioned Apollo, but Clay is kind of like in there. And it's weird, they kind of compete, but then a lot of people use them together too. How do you think about where does that fit in all this, like that building block of GTM?
Yeah, so it hits a couple different areas. One, initial ICP defining and building the account lists that feed into how you're going to market the audiences you want to go create, right? So it makes it very easy to get the information that you need to target the accounts that you want. Now, that being said, if you're driving an inbound motion where you may or may not have those accounts in the system, whatever system that is, you can use, you kind of like, I do this on my website now. It enriches takes the person's email address and these systems can go out, find company, firmographic data on everything there is. Mentioning those job postings we talked about earlier, it can give you all of that. And so, how I'm using that and how I'm helping people use that is in a similar way. Like, what are the signals you want to know about the companies that are interacting with you? Apollo / Clay / your own Claude code or whatever will get you that information so you can reach out or choose not to reach out with a lot of context on that company or person.
Yeah. And then, so that's there. And then I'm sensing this is part of an ABM piece. What's Rob's best practice for, where does ABM fit in? And should you only be doing ABM now, or like how to help, so is ABM part of this, and how do you piece all this together?
It is. I mean, I think it depends on what you're selling, right? I think that's the truth. I think before, ABM was a little bit of a kind of unreachable star, if you will, because there was never enough bandwidth to go target all the accounts that you wanted to target in a really, really, account focused way. But if you have a good feel for your ICP and the accounts that are there, I wouldn't say it's only ABM, because you want to have that pillar that we talked about, that content strategy that's out there kind of reaching the masses. But from an outreach perspective, it's darn close to ABM only, right? Because you can just be better than you could be before. And I think, like you said earlier, having a human in the loop is a necessity, but you can automate a lot of the things that were before blockers to having a really broad ABM strategy. You can automate a bunch of those things, and now you can get an authentic message out in front of a lot more accounts than you could before.
Cool. Yeah. So you left Commerce, formerly BigCommerce. It's been like 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah.
3 months.
Left in March. And, we were into the kind of the AI go-to-market motion. And I just started doing some advising, consulting, fractional work, really, started RevBo.ai. The story behind the name is on the site. My grandfather's name, I called him Bo. So there you go.
It's a very Southern name. It's not very Chicago.
It was not. No, his name was nothing like Bo. It was John is his name. So
it's probably like when you're a kid and you're just like, "What's up, Bo?"
That's exactly what happened. So he would hate everything AI. So I just thought it was funny to put them all together. But yeah, I've been doing that, talking to lots of companies, people, individuals as well, like salespeople who are kind of unsure of how to go about, their own day to day. Honestly, it's changing a lot for those folks as well. So it's been great. It's been, I'll say for the people that listen to this, nobody has it right. The playbook's still being written. I think it's a wide range of people using AI. They're easy use cases. They're ones that we're talking about, like intent, automation, all those things that are a little bit more complex, but it's a wide range of adoption at this point.
Yeah. And are you, so if folks are interested, let's kind of help them pre-qualify. Are you looking for, I'm a founder, I've been doing founder-led sales. So this is the early part of the journey where we usually get to meet companies here in Tweener land, I may be at $1 million ARR, closing in on it. And I've been doing the heroic founder-led sales, and now I need help to figure out who do I hire? How do I automate some of what I'm doing? So that's one level. Then there's kind of like the I'm at 3 to 5 million ARR. I'm building out a team. I've got kind of a leader, or I'm still the leader on up the food chain to mid market and on up. Where are you? Where do you feel like you're adding the most value? What's and then my follow up is going to be like, what are you seeing in all those different buckets? It's always interesting to kind of hear what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, so definitely in the founder led sales bucket, being seen active there. I'll say, it depends on how big. Maybe like between greater than 2 million, maybe 5 million. I've talked to some folks there, and it's exactly what you said, right? Where do I go? Like, where do I start? Who do I hire? What profile, like a sales exec, should I hire? That's a trapdoor, frankly, in today's world a little bit. And then
hiring sales rep is very hard because they're all really good sales. They all interview really well. If they don't interview well, that makes your life easier, but that's like obvious. But it's very hard for me to find a sales rep that doesn't interview well. And it is very hard to hire them. The one thing I know I would never, ever recommend is don't go get someone that's a big company and think they're going to do well in your startup as a first sales employee. I have never seen that work. 100% failure rate.
That is a tough one because they've got a lot of support there that you're just not going to give them.
Yeah. Their first question is, what's your PTO policy and how do I get an admin? And you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think also with AI on that topic, just for a second, it's just right now you've got kind of, I call it 4 tiers of salespeople: great, good, meh, and bad. Bad weed themselves out every year. They turn over. Your great ones and good ones are going to get way better. And there's a whole portion, or you're one in the middle, that are going to be bad. They've got bad habits. They're just going to use AI to just, they don't have good sales foundation because it's still all through all this AI we're talking to. You're still building relationships. You have to be curious as a salesperson. You have to ask those questions that get you further down the path. You can't be afraid to ask closing questions and leading questions, all the things. And we saw such an explosion of salespeople over the last, call it 12 years. There's a whole slew of them that are not going to be good. That's why I say it's a trapdoor. You might find some of those folks as a founder, and they're not going to necessarily drive the business for you. So just be careful on it. Happy to help on that side. Just kind of transitioning to the mid market side, probably anywhere north of that, between call it 20 to 30 million. That's where you've got, I'd say, the characteristics there. We've got some process. We have a pretty decent idea of our ICP. We're not just doing stuff for wherever there's revenue at that point. And I need to really throttle it up, right? And maybe they're going for another round of funding, whatever they're trying to do. But I need to grow sales quickly, and I need to be efficient about it. That's where I've seen a lot of good practice, but just, things really dial in. And the interesting thing, I've done that growth before between, 10 to 30, et cetera. But I've also seen, 300 million, right? $1 billion. So it's a helpful kind of transition. I can help people get through that pretty easily. And then the other area I'll say is the companies that are bigger than that are, going through a transformation, and they need someone that knows what they're talking about to be a part of it, right? They're like, hey, I don't necessarily need a sales leader, but I need someone that's going to help me transition from Salesforce to something else. And I want to make sure it's AI enabled as we go. Those are the kind of the 3 areas that I've been talking to companies, helping people. Cool.
Yeah. And if folks want to, are you putting any thought leadership out there? Or, you're on LinkedIn. I know that much, but if folks want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So there's I be active on LinkedIn for sure. I'll say I built a kind of an AI native scorecard that you can go and kind of go through on the site. It'll tell you where you're at. It does take into things like you're getting your foundation right. Can make sure you've got a good ICP, you've got a good data model, all those things all this cool stuff we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. If you don't have that, it goes out the window. But go through that, and then I'll, happy to set up time, talk with you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, directly. And yeah, those are the two areas.
That I know we were kind of in the wind down phase there, but now you made me curious. So talk a bit more about the scorecard. So data, Palantir has kind of famously got this ontology where they've kind of like defined some super secret way of setting up your data that makes it flexible for moving around. Like what's the, maybe throw out what are the best practices starting at data for kind of like from maybe 1 million to 10 million. What are some best practices? Like what are table stakes that we should be doing out there, just so folks kind of understand that?
Yeah, I think I would say having a good data model, whatever CRM or spreadsheet that you're using, that highlights the milestone moments of the go-to-market process, right? And those things last throughout. And I say milestone moments, like showing some of the intent that we talked about earlier, like having that first discovery call with them and making sure that you capture that data and it lives forever. Having things like making sure the enrichment happens on the accounts so that that I just had 50 calls with companies in this vertical or with this many employees, right? Those things that get lost, kind of in the shuffle if you're just going, right? Those are definitely some things. And as you get further in the sales cycle, again, having clear exit criteria to how you're moving something through a sales funnel. Like if I go from stage 2 to 3, I did these 3 things, right? And it's all recorded and it's in your CRM or Excel spreadsheet of choice that you can then use that in your model to learn, right? Because I think one of these things is if you're not capturing it, your brain is not going to be able to learn from it as you go forward.
And you can't get it back. It just falls on the floor and is gone forever.
It's gone, sad. Right? Yeah,
wasted intent. It's gold dust that just slipped through your fingers.
Yeah, you think through like the past. I mean, there's so much of that happened, in past lives, right? Because you're just handwritten notes, and now it just all lives there, right? So set up your systems in a way that allows you to capture it, and then you'll be able to get something out of it in the next time around.
So one of the best things we get a lot of value out is sellers, the SEs, the sales execs out recording all their calls. And it used to be you would use Gong, which is relatively expensive. We just use like any old transcription service, like Granola is the one we use, but we could just as easily use Zoom or Otter or like one of the thousands that are out there. Whisper has one. Do you still recommend Gong, or is like the transcripts enough? The Gong thing was like any sales leader can just listen in on the call after the fact, but I don't know. Like I often question like who had time to go do that, and like where did you even know to go look and stuff?
I'm honestly, I used Gong multiple places, and it was very good when I first joined and got up to speed. But then you don't have the time. And Gong's done. They've made some improvements where they give you a debrief of all the things you can do, coaching and all that. So it's fine, but I would say for the smaller companies we're talking about between, $5-10 million, Granola is fine. Granola is great. Actually, I love Granola. I use Granola myself, and you'll get as much benefit out of that as you would something else. And frankly, Granola works when you're having coffee with someone too. Right. And so you've got, I would recommend Granola to everybody. Also the integration with Claude and things like that make things super easy as you go and try to do some analysis on those calls.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, you can even. I like Granola has a little recipe thing in there, which is basically their version of Skills. And I have one in there that's kind of like I like to see what are the questions the prospects asked, and then I can then take that and then have Claude. Now I can have Claude go through and I can say, hey, for all sales calls in this period of time, look at all the questions asked by the prospect and then rank them, bucketize them and then rank them in frequency. And it's like, and then we'll actually put that on our website. It's like pretty wild to be able to do that. It's nuts.
It's pretty crazy. I use Granola and Claude. I have the scorecard, and then I've got another kind of audit process that I'll put customers through. And I just have a skill that grabs the Granola calls that are, tagged a certain way, and it just spits out the what the suggestion is, then I can just go through it and have a discussion with the client. I mean, you don't need the fancy call recordings.
Robbie's prototyping something that with permission listens to the meeting, and not only does it build a to-do list, but it starts working on it. It's pretty wild. Because he realized like his most unproductive time was meetings, and he was like, how can I have an agent that like starts working on these things and at least gets a running start on it, and then gets until it's blocked, and then I can unblock it, but then now he's like compounding it, and he's just getting them running longer and longer, so eventually like he'll have the meeting, and then sitting on there on the silver platter is all the stuff that his deliverables from the meeting. That's the holy grail. He's not quite there, but I suspect there's nothing. There's once you wire all this together, there's nothing that could, technologically that would stop that from happening. It's pretty crazy.
No, and you should. I mean, the whole point of this is to have less meetings and get out, especially on the go-to-market side, get out there in front of your customers. Have better retention with the customers you have. Bring in front of your prospects. If you just fill your days with more meetings, that you have more time, it just kind of defeats the purpose, right? So
yeah, absolutely. One other thing is, how do you feel? So you were in the belly of the beast during, we've both been in the belly of big SaaS businesses. How do you feel about the SaaSageddon and this? Because we see it in our portfolio company all the time, where companies, even startups of like, 5 million ARR, are getting huge benefits. The interview that actually is coming out this week, the founders saved like $10K a month just by going out and, they actually built their own Slack clone because, I think they had like a lot of people using Slack that were not in the company, but it like made the Slack bill kind of go up. So I've seen ticketing systems are always one of the first things to go. So a Zendesk or a customer with a K, there's a bunch of those where you're only using 10% of this thing, and you know what exactly the workflow you're using, and then you can vibe code out that workflow. What do you think about, what's Rob's view of this? How do you, is it happening? What have you seen, and how do you make yourself on the other side? How do you defend against it?
It's definitely happening. You just talked about the reasons. It's a question especially if you're a founder of a business or someone that's trying to grow, you're always thinking about going, do I really have to buy this thing? Right. And also because the, part of the SaaSageddon or whatever you want to call it is what we talked about earlier. It just, my bill never goes down. It never goes up. It always goes up. Now they're all introducing credit systems, which
usage tokens. Yeah.
Okay, you want to use this, you're going to now pay usage tokens. It's just another flavor. I think for a lot of the bigger companies, or the publicly traded companies, you're still going to use these products because you kind of have to, compliance and security and things like that. But I think the use case where you have, I just need to really do this one thing or these two things. Why I would absolutely try to build that thing before I went and bought something. So I definitely think it's coming. I don't think it will be. I think there's also a lot more options, versus, there's a lot more options. Like, I use Clarify AI for my CRM. Like, that's something that is still SaaS, but it's, a modern version. So there's more options as well. But, it's definitely happening. I think it's also for the sales, like they're having trouble selling it as well, which is probably adding to the apocalypse fear, is that it's, people are really hesitant to make these purchases now because they're in that mode of like, okay, do we have to do this? Right? Should we just build it? Right. And so, you're seeing salespeople go out the window at different companies for this very reason. They can do more with less, and attainment's not high. And so it's definitely happening.
How about, we've had a couple people on the show that do go-to-market engineering inside of these bigger companies. Do you think that's like a Band-Aid, or should people structurally set up that way to have an engineer embedded in the sales team to kind of like build stuff they need in real time?
Yeah, you actually should have that role. I think it is a bit of RevOps. Your traditional RevOps role is changing. Like for me, just giving advice to like a small, a founder-led business or something that's just kind of getting some sales going. Have a GTM engineer and have people on the data side that know how to get the data. It's far more powerful than, honestly, maybe even a sales rep, in some cases, because, you can enrich and automate so much of the process that your sales rep or even the founder can be really, really precise in their outreach and have a much bigger success rate. So I think that role is definitely, especially as it pertains to AI orchestration and workflow. I think in some cases I've seen GTM engineers that are still automating some reporting, which is fine, right? But it's just really around the AI automation and workflow part that those folks can be one of the more valuable resources in your company.
Yeah. Cool. Rob, I really appreciate it. If you folks will put a link to your LinkedIn and then obviously RevBo, you could reach out to either of those. It's Rob Walter with no S. Is your LinkedIn Rob or Robert?
It is Rob.
Just Rob? Rob. Okay. Yep. You have a relatively common name and it may be hard for people to find you. Not as bad as MJ, where Michael Jones, where there's a trillion of this. We even had 2 as LPs at one point. It was kind of funny. It's like, there you go. Another Michael Jones. Appreciate you coming in and wish you nothing but success with RevBo. And folks, if you need help, I can attest Rob is the guy that can solve your problems much better than myself. So he's got lots of water under the bridge, and he's seen a little bit of everything. So give Rob a holler if you need go-to-market help.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it.
NC Tweener Talks is hosted by Scott Wingo, presented and produced by NC Tweener Fund, which is powered by NC Idea, with creative assets and design support from our friends at Walk West. That's it for today's episode. A big thank you to our guests, sponsors, and the team that makes this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves the startup stories coming out of the North Carolina Tweener Talks and the entire Tweener community.